This is the Dumpster Fire Project. What's up, everybody? This is the Dumpster Fire Project. My name is Eric Scramlin.
I'm Murray Swash.
And hey, if this is the first time that you're checking out the Dumpster Fire Project, we are a podcast that's all about side hustle startups and small businesses. Murray and I are no experts. We're just two normal guys who decided to take the leap, if you will, and start a side hustle with the goal of someday doing that as a full-time job. On this podcast, we memorialize our own journey. We talk about our stories, sometimes successful, most of the time failures. But our goal is to share that with you, share our journey with you so you can learn from our mistakes. And as part of that, we're also interviewing successful entrepreneurs and business owners. So we have them on here a lot to tell us what are they doing that's working and tell us their stories. Murray, I want to make a little pitch here since we're going to be talking about the podcast today, but I want to ask our listeners, if you're listening to this, you obviously are probably on an app or YouTube or whatever, please hit the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcasting app, please hit the subscribe button. We're going to be talking about today how we want to really expand this podcast, and for us to invest the money and the time that's going to go into that, we need subscribers. So please, if you're a fan of ours, tell your friends, tell everybody, hit the subscribe button, and we're really going to try to grow this thing. So with
Absolutely.
that said, with that said, I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about on today's episode, Murray. We're up to episode number 13. Lucky 13.
Lucky number 13. Yeah, so I thought you threw out an interesting fact. Didn't you say something like most podcasts don't make it past 7? So we made it. We're over that hump.
Yeah. So in my research, it seems to be the average. Most podcasts that fail will fail by episode 7. So we're past that hump. Maybe because we just don't realize how bad it sucks. So please, if you don't want the Dumpster Fire Project to go out of business, hit that damn subscribe button.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And
I think it's...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Murray. It's all yours.
Yeah, on top of that, we're going to get in today talking about how we realized we're no longer in that beginning phase, that we need to up our game. So Eric's definitely going to get into some equipment discussion. He's so far has invested a little bit more than I have. He's trialed some stuff, but it also ties into what his side hustle is. So I'm letting him take the lead on that, but we're definitely going to keep getting better and better so we won't sound like scratchy Oscar the Grouch or anything like that on the future podcast.
Yeah, the original idea was Murray had such the sexy voice that we wouldn't need to do much except just give him a microphone. But now we're making some advancements here. As you can see, we're on YouTube. We're doing the vodcast. I think we should also mention it is about almost 10:30 my time here, Mountain Time. We originally planned to do this episode at 9 a.m., but for the last hour and a half, we were going through technical difficulties, getting Zoom set up, getting the camera angles right. My internet connection's not working. So this is all stuff that we kind of want to talk about today, what it's like if you have a small business or if you want to start a podcast, some of the crazy stuff that we've learned so far and what we plan to do going forward. So I think, Murray, the first thing, maybe let's talk about what we've done so far with the podcast. Like if we look back to episode 1 or even when we were talking about doing this, and kind of how far we've come now that we're in episode 13. So for me, I look back, we talked about doing a podcast kind of jokingly because we thought it would help our businesses. And we also thought that maybe it could be a way to share our story so other people who wanted to start a side hustle or business could look at it and say, hey, look at what these guys are doing. Look at all the mistakes they're doing. And I think by episode 13, it's fair to say that we've come through on our goal of making mistakes and sharing them.
Yeah, I think we have. And we started out, just hit record. Let's do it. Let's try it. And we'll add value along the way. I definitely agree. I think we've hit our initial scope. And even just the first 10, we've learned a lot. We've learned how to pivot and what we need to do to get to that next level. So overall, it's been good. We had a great mix of people when we started interviewing them. The pandemic happened, which gave us access to some members that we might not have otherwise been able to reach out to or get time from because they're, there's one podcast where we specifically talk about the downtime where, we're taking as much advantage of this as we can because people like us don't get that very often. So it's been great. We've had a good mix of people, a lot of great skills on here, and it's all been uphill and ready to take that next big leap.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think when we first started talking about doing the podcast, we never envisioned having guests on here. This was going to be like, hey, every other week, let's sit down and talk about our businesses, like what's working, what's not working. That was the original goal. And I think when COVID happened, we had nothing to talk about because our businesses weren't doing anything. I got a speaking business. Everything's canceled. Pretty much whatever field you're in, unless you're the owners of Zoom, nothing much was going on. So we had this idea of bringing some guests on, and that's kind of where the podcast went now. We're still going to do episodes like this where Murray and I stick to the original goals, but I think a big part of what we do going forward is to continue to bring guests in that have side hustles, businesses, how they were able to build that, and their stories on making them successful. And I think, Murray, you said it perfectly. When we originally did this, we said we knew nothing about podcasting. We said we have a background in music, so we knew a little bit about recording and how to get a decent sound. But we said we don't even have any equipment. Let's just get a cheap, Amazon microphone plug it in and hit the record button. We had no structure. We had no interview technique. It was like, let's just hit record and go. And that's what we've done for the first, 12 episodes. Murray and I have spent the last week kind of sitting down and researching and reading articles and try to come up with, a best practices model. So going forward, we're going to try to invest in, first of all, better sounding equipment. And we're going to talk about some of the switches we've made and what we're going to invest into so we get that better professional sound. And we also want to work on our, I guess, I don't know what we want to call it, Murray, interview technique, or how we interview our guests. It seems like we've just kind of basically said, hey, this is our guest. Why don't you tell everybody about yourself? That they just kind of take the show over and who knows where they're going to go, right?
Yeah. We talked about that where we want to give them the freedom to speak their mind, but we don't want them to get off too far to a tangent. And it's fun to throw those little things in. You always need, the green and the blue hat moments, like a good mix of everything. But it's nice to control it, make sure we're bringing value. And I think another thing to mention is that early on, when we got into COVID, it's interesting that even though we had planned on, you had your speaking gig and I was using contractors, one of my learning lessons was I was surprised how, reluctant even digital contractors were, people that are out on those platforms. And I think there was just this uneasiness that people didn't know, like, do I really want to take on this job? Like, what does the future look like? So it was interesting. Not only were you directly impacted because that made sense, but there was just this overall uneasiness. And not to bring the program down, but that's just one of those things where the whole world, I think, had to learn how to adjust and maybe just take a breather for a minute. So that was good to bring those guests on. And if nothing else, have them talk through that, knowing that they're in the same mindset, or they were already established and now they've got to pivot a lot harder than we already had to. So a lot of good things. I do like the idea of getting better equipment. Eric and I have always nerded out on that just because it's, like with the music background or just wanting to sound good. And then you get into the digital side of it or the mathematical side of it. Just how good can you make it sound? It almost becomes a challenge. A lot of people like doing puzzles. Well, there's a different kind of puzzle for us. So it's right. Fun and a little bit of work at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive in and let's talk about our equipment. So when we first started the podcast, you and I both had very basic equipment. So if you watch YouTube videos, if you watch how to start a podcast, a lot of people will say, just, get your phone, get a cheap microphone and get recording. And that's a good idea because at some point you got to just do it. But it's 2020. People don't want to listen to shitty audio on podcasts anymore. If the audio sucks, they're going to skip over it and go somewhere else. So when we first started doing it, Murray and I tried to think of how are we going to do a remote podcast where, Murray, you're in Michigan, I'm in New Mexico. And we didn't, want to spend much money on it because we didn't know if it was going to work. So we started using Skype. That was our first 5 or 6 episodes, Murray, we did Skype.
Yeah. Yep.
And there was no, I was using my Amazon bought Blue Snowball microphone, which is an excellent microphone. And I think the audio has been really good with it so far. And then Murray, you got a pretty high-end USB microphone there using the Blue Spark, right?
Yeah, I got the Blue Spark, and I mean, it picks up instruments, even my entire drum set, great without clipping. I can mix it, like, I don't need a ton of other auxiliary mics around it. So instrument wise, it's great, but we did run into a few challenges doing the podcast, which was interesting because the big marketing ploy on this was that it was perfect for podcasts, especially people getting into it. I had already bought this mic years ago, so I thought it's like, great, I'll just plug it in. I've already got my mic ready to go. And, you know, it's like, maybe not. Maybe there's something to it. But overall, you know, it's great for instruments, but that's why we're going to upgrade for the vocals for the podcast.
Yeah. And these, both the microphones that Murray and I are using are condenser microphones. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute as, you know, why that's different than what I'm using right now, the Shure SM58, which is a, it is a, what is it called? It's a cardioid dynamic, totally different microphone. These condenser microphones will pick up dogs farting at my neighbor's yard. They are super, super sensitive. Whereas these dynamic microphones, you got to be more right on top of it. It's not going to pick up everything back there. So that was one of the selling points. I don't want to get too far off topic because I am going to spend some time talking about this microphone and why I love this microphone so much. But going back to the beginning, it really didn't matter what microphone Murray and I were using because we're using Skype. So we had that VoIP connection where our audio was piped into Skype. And then when the episode was done, I would pull that off of Skype. I would put it in Audacity, and there wasn't much I could do to it because it was that internet, you know, we've all heard Skype calls and you got that like digitized sound going on there. And basically all I did in the early days, which now I look back on like, man, it used to take me like 5 minutes to do a post-production on our podcast. I would just drop the audio in there. It's all on one track, just me and Murray and our guests all on one track. And I would just go through and I would compress it. I would, if it was just all three of us guys talking, I would give it a slight boost to the bass and a slight boost to the highs, but there wasn't a whole lot you could do because it was the Skype audio. And then I would compress it and normalize it at about 0 dB, which if you go back and listen to the early episodes, you do hear some clipping on there. The last few episodes, I've been putting it about -1 to -1.5, normalizing it because when I was in my car, I could hear some clipping in some of the episodes, but there wasn't much we could do with using Skype. So now what we're using is Zencastr, and Murray and we had some issues with it early on, but we tried some other programs similar to Zencastr. And what we found is Zencastr seems to be way ahead of the game compared to its competitors. It does have some minor issues to it, but for our purposes, it works great. And the nice thing about it is on Zencastr, I got a track that's me talking, and we got a track that's Murray's talking. So when this episode is done, I can pull those tracks out. It goes up to a cloud, and then I can, in post-production, work on each of our tracks separately, and it records locally to your computer. So you don't get that Skype kind of gurgling sound. But what have you thought of Zencastr so far, Murray? I think we both decided this is probably what we're going to use going forward.
Yeah, audio-wise, it's been really good. In the issues we ran into, we had to troubleshoot, and come to find out it's probably some kind of connection between my microphone, the headphones I'm using, some of those connections. I've got wireless headphones I'll start using in the future. So once we get it fine-tuned or find out exactly what that perfect combination is, I think it'll be good to go. And now we're using, Zoom for video. I just realized now that we've already messed up, which is fine. We're going to roll with the punches. I'm using my front camera so I can actually see Eric instead of turning it around and using the better camera on the phone. But either way, it's those little things that we'll learn as we go through. We'll watch an episode. We'll trial something else. So there's actually a lot more time that goes in behind the scenes for a podcast. I just listened to a podcast from a really well-known guy, and he said that he can spend 7 to 14 days just researching before he even records his podcast. But again, he's bringing on like some of the largest names in the world. So he owes it to his fans and all that. And we do too. But I think we know most people we're bringing on right now, we already know somehow, some way we have a connection. So we don't need to research that deep, but that just gives you an idea of how much work in the background can actually go into a podcast. Not to deter anyone from trying to start one. Still do it like we did. Just start it. You got to start somewhere, but make sure you learn as you go.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right now, this is the whole point of our podcast is we're talking about these are the mistakes we've made. And it's kind of weird because when we did the podcast, it was supposed to be something to supplement the business and just talk about, how we're, failing and how we're doing things well. And we thought, hey, we'll get some listeners and maybe that'll help our side hustles. But I think now the podcast has taken on a life of its own. We see that there's some opportunity here, not only to advertise our businesses, tell our stories, but this is something that I enjoy doing a lot. And I don't have any problem investing money into it. And I think there's potential that this could be something that could generate some income for us at some point. So that's why we need you to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah.
Well, before we go ahead, yeah. I'm stealing the mic. This is another thing. I steal the microphone from Murray all the time.
That's fine. We'll get the flow down better. We started talking about this, how we're going to do handoffs and transitions a little bit better.
Yeah, we haven't figured that one out yet.
And usually we're a little more well-versed when it comes to having guests on. I think when you and I get on here, we're just friends. We do this on the phone. We cut each other off. We're so excited. We're talking about stuff. We just get on a roll. And you don't want to lose that idea. So we've got to treat the podcast or the vodcast a little bit different than when we just call each other on the phone and are, just talking about baseball or whatever it might be. So
exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of my next point that we're going to talk about before we get into the best practices and what we've talked about as far as recording, interviewing, researching. Let me tell you guys about the equipment adjustment that I made. So like I said, when I first started out, the Blue Snowball, excellent microphone. If you want to start a podcast and it's solo, get one of these, plug it into Audacity. You are good to go. It's going to give you, if you know or do research on how to do just some basic post-production editing in Audacity, really all you have to do is learn to EQ, a little bit of EQ, compressor, normalize the audio. This thing's going to sound fantastic. But now Murray and I are adjusting. We want to bring on more guests. I want to bring guests live into the studio here, which is my bedroom. Murray just did the episode at Dead Bear Brewing. We ran into all kinds of issues. And if you listen to the audio, it's not good because he had that one condenser microphone that was picking up all kinds of background noise. And the audio quality was not good between the two of them. So what we've done now, this is my first episode using this new equipment. So I have a Shure SM58 microphone. This thing is a legendary. Show it if you're watching on YouTube. I'm showing the box here. The SM58. This is a legendary vocal microphone that's been around for years and years and years. If you go to any live concert, chances are you're going to see this thing on stage. I don't think this is a huge mic in podcasting. I know a lot of people use it. I decided to get this because it's affordable. You can get it for $100, and it just has a legendary vocal sound. There's even videos of this microphone being run over by a bus and like hammering nails in. Like, this thing is amazing. When Murray and I were in bands, this was, the mics that we went to because the sound is excellent. So this was the microphone that I wanted. It's $100. I didn't necessarily want to come in at this point and buy the SM7B, which is like $500. That's the gold standard that a lot of podcasters use. But if you're going to use this as an XLR microphone, so it's not USB, it doesn't have the ease of like what Murray's using and what I had been using. So you got to invest. When you buy this microphone, you go down the rabbit hole. Now you got to invest in a lot more stuff. So we got the XLR cable that is, I'm running this into a very popular podcasting interface, the Scarlett 2i2. What this interface does is it allows me to plug the XLR cable, this microphone in. I have a couple different gain settings, and I have the ability to use my XLR microphone and then pipe it into the computer. It's also, here's the thing you're going to run into, and this is why I say it's a rabbit hole, is when I plug this dynamic microphone into the interface, these dynamic microphones are known as being power hungry. So I had to turn the gain all the way up just to get to like -12, -15, which is an acceptable recording level. And then when I in post, it would just have a bunch of hiss and noise on it. So the solution was I had to spend another $100 on this Fethead preamp. And this preamp has been a game changer. So the preamp is just running in line to my Focusrite down here. You can kind of see it on the video. So this long thing here is the preamp. Then my XLR cable is plugged into that, going into the Focusrite. Now I'm at about 35-40% of my gain. So this should sound a lot cleaner in post, and it won't bring that hiss in. For video, I got about $120 Logitech, what is it, C920, which is an excellent webcam. I'm going to be making some serious upgrades with video shortly. I'm looking at either the Canon M50 or the the M6 Mark II, which I was this close to buying the other day, and then I said, $1,000 is a lot of money, so I may actually go and get the M50. But either way, I'm buying it this week. So that's where my equipment has evolved from this into this. Murray is still a little smarter than me, so he said, well, let's see how it sounds with Eric first, and then he'll invest in it. So likely, if this audio sounds good, Murray in the future is going to get the same exact setup that I have. The nice thing about this too is there's 2 inputs on the Focusrite. So I have one microphone for me, and then I can plug in a second microphone for my guests, which would have made our Dead Bear episode probably sound a lot better. So that's probably where we're going in the future, if this sounds okay.
Yeah, and
so
I've
Murray,
got
get on Amazon.
Well,
get buying some shit.
That's the good thing with all the recording stuff that I have here. I already have an SM58. I've got, the preamp. I've got some of the equipment, so that's good that you found stuff that I already have. So I don't think the investment will be as big. I mean, I'd still go all in if I needed to get the same setup, but it's kind of a win-win situation for me. I'll just go pull it out of the practice space and set it up here.
Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely going to sound a lot better.
What's kind of funny is, honestly, if this type of episode where it's just you and I talking, probably no one would tell the difference if I was just on my Blue Snowball and you were on your Spark. The only downfall is it picks up the dogs barking and it picks up a lot of that background noise. I live in a subdivision. Like the road is like 10 feet away from my window here. So every time a truck goes by, this thing picks it up. I think the only benefit to this setup for what we're doing now is maybe slightly better audio and it doesn't pick up a lot of the background noise. But when we do these interviews, I think that's where this is going to really shine, because now we have a mic right in somebody's face and not sitting back there picking up all the background noise. So you're right. It's nice that you have that stuff. So that'll be good.
Yeah, I think the bigger investment for me is going to be on the video side. I'm just running off my cell phone right now. And today, Eric and I got our wires crossed. I didn't realize it was going to be a vodcast. Wasn't set up. I was trying to find a spot where I didn't have crazy reflections coming in off these posters behind me. So if I look a little weird or out of frame here, I'll try and fix it right now for you. That's why I'm leaning in a little bit and got the mic here. But yeah, it's just a little unprepared, but we made it work. Right. We took some time and did what we could for today at least. And again, get the content out there.
Exactly. You'll notice on the video, you look at me, I have a full frame shot because I have a 1080p camera. I can't remember the megapixels, but this is really good quality for $120. Murray's using his front facing camera. So that, first of all, that right there is going to take away a lot of you're going to notice a difference in video quality between our 2 shots on the YouTube video. So when Murray upgrades to a little bit better camera, which I've recommended to him just to get this for now, which is an excellent camera, you'll see a difference in his video because it's cropped as well because it's not covering widescreen. So we're going to make that investment.
Or I have a better idea. You're getting your new camera. Just shoot me this one. I'll just set it up.
Yeah, maybe we might do that. I'll sell it to you.
It's a deal.
$200.
It's done. Done deal.
Yeah. Right now I have a cat down here scratching away at the floor, and I wonder if the microphone picked it up. That'll be a test.
I can't hear it, but I'm also half deaf from all the loud music. So
yes. So that's our equipment. This is a huge. Let me tell before we move on. Let me say the microphone, $100 for a Shure microphone. I paid $150, I think, for the Scarlett 2i2. $100 for the preamp. This boom arm was like $20 on Amazon. I mean, all said and done, you can get a professional sounding setup for under $500, no problem. I still got to buy more stuff. I'm gonna have to get another SM58. I'm going to have to get another preamp because we got a guest that we're going to be interviewing live in studio over here in the next couple episodes. I got to get that set up, so I got to invest even more money in that. But like I said, for $500 to have a studio quality sound, I think that's all right. But just starting off, use your equipment. Okay, so we talked about the equipment. Let's shift gears a little bit. Early episodes, we started interviewing guests. You and I have no idea what we're doing. Now, I'm an attorney, and I've done a lot of jury trials in my career. So Murray and I have talked to each other about how can we keep control of our podcast as hosts and kind of it's not letting our guest hijack it, but they're a guest on our podcast and we're the host. And in order to be a good host, we want to make sure that we are not just saying like, hey, John, tell everybody your story. And then we just kind of sit back and they have no idea what to do. So I've talked to Murray about kind of incorporating what I do during a jury trial. I have a story that I want to tell to the jury, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let my witness ruin my story. So I got to figure out a way to control them, control the direction that it's going in a way that's going to tell a story to the jury, but I can control where it goes. So Murray and I, hopefully you'll see in the next few episodes, we're going to try to take control of the episode a little more. I think the last episode, the Dead Bear episode, was a good example. We just kind of let our guest, we asked really vague, open-ended questions, and he would talk for like 10 minutes, which is fine. He had good stuff to say, and I think it's an excellent episode, but I think we can get more out of our podcast if we can learn how to control the direction of the podcast. So thoughts on that, Murray?
Yeah, and even though I'm not a lawyer, I still run into the same things during my day job. I'm trying to figure out, I need so many resources. Number one, be a good storyteller. If you can tell a story, you can sell just about anything. But I'm, trying to tell my story of why I need resources, where I want to spend the money, how I'm making money for the company. There's all these different things that I'm doing in front of the customer. I'm trying to sell our company to them to get the business. I wear many different hats, so it's a little bit of a unique scenario. I'm not just the typical engineer, and I've been there long enough where I've done just about everything, or at least dabbled in a little bit of it. And not only that, but I took all that into my side hustle and all the studying I've been doing. That's what it talks about. It's like you control the story. Figure out what you want your story to be and find out ways to control it without being so direct. It doesn't have to be all yes, no, like just guide them. Yeah. And you don't want to do anything deceiving, nothing immoral or anything like that, but you can guide it and help them get out of them what you're trying to get. And for us, it's the most beneficial concept or feedback from them to help the listeners.
Right. No, that's well said. And I don't want to give the impression that when I do a jury trial, like making stuff up. What I'm talking about is I know I've built what our story is. So Murray and I, when we do an episode, this is what we want to get. We've researched our guests, which is something we're going to do more of. We know that our guest has started this company, and then he moved on to company B, and then he worked for a private company, and then he went back to company C. So some of the techniques that I've used as an attorney is I kind of talk about that. Okay, so you were the owner of company A, B, and C. What did you do after you owned company C? So I can point them in the direction where I want them to go rather than just saying, tell us about yourself. And then you have no idea where it's going. So.
Yeah. And again, it's all back to that storytelling. You think about all your favorite books that you like. You don't just want to sit down and point out the facts. I mean, reading white papers can be very tough sometimes. I mean, a ton of great detail. Yeah. But if it's just fact after fact after fact, you tie it into something that somebody can relate with, they're always going to remember that. And that's what we're trying to do here is let's tell our real life story. It's not a story. We're not making it up. But if we tell that, people can relate to that because they're like, oh, yeah, I've been there. I remember that exact moment. Or, oh, man, I'm here now. And these guys are, 6 months ahead of us, wherever you're watching us. And be like, that could be coming for me. So try and learn from us now to fix your story, to make your story go a little bit smoother, hopefully.
Yeah, and you saw me there, Murray, as I just kind of glanced over and stopped talking. It's because out of the corner of my eye, I caught on Zencastr a little disconnect, reconnect, which we haven't had that issue in a long time. But again, this is some of the other things you run into. We're doing a remote podcast. I got computer over here with Zencastr, got computer right in front of me with Zoom on it. I got Cat down here who's getting into shit. Getting into stuff as we speak. So I got a lot of stuff going on. But this has been a challenge with the internet stuff, and I think it's not much we can do about it except try to get the best internet connections we can. So I hope that doesn't screw things up.
Well, I also wonder if it's getting bogged down just a little bit because so many people are at home using their home internet. It's like companies, areas like that might be set up better for. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Maybe the grid's laid out a little bit different, and everyone's at home, so we're draining those areas.
I'm in Hobbs, America. I've always joked that the internet hasn't been established here yet. It's just been notoriously slow for years. I haven't had too much of an issue here. Ironically enough, the best internet I've had in my 10 years of living in New Mexico was when I lived on a ranch that the closest neighbor was like 6 miles away because it used to be the ranch headquarters, and they hired the internet company to do a direct fiber optic line straight to the ranch. So my internet there was amazing in the middle of nowhere. All right, Murray, we said we were going to try to keep this around a half an hour. We've talked about equipment. We've talked about some of the best practices that we're going to do. Let's spend a minute or two at the end, let our listeners know where we intend to go from here with the podcast.
Yeah, so next we're going to continue to bring on a great mix of people to interview. We're stepping up that level. So a lot of people we've had on previously, friends, acquaintances, nothing wrong with that. They all have some great stories, but I think we are going to challenge ourselves to get out of our comfort zone a little bit and find those people who are, 2 to 3 steps ahead of us so that we can learn from them. You're learning from us. So maybe you're getting 2 different levels to approach your new company with, or side hustle, whatever you want to call it. Or maybe it's just learning how to be, better at life or your day job. That's fine too, whatever you get out of it. But we're challenging ourselves to take it to that next level. So really excited for some of the next guests we have coming up.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better. I think, starting off on a podcast that can't offer any money, we had to go to people that we knew. And that was part of our idea, is we want to we're ordinary people. We don't want to bring on Elon Musk on here, although he's more than welcome to come on this podcast. Didn't think that was realistic. But also part of the idea of the Dumpster Fire Project is we're normal guys. We want to talk to normal people and not necessarily someone that's made, millions of dollars doing this. But like Murray said, going forward, we want to challenge ourselves to get out of our comfort zone. We're going to try to reach outside of our network. And we've been doing that, and we've had some luck. We do have some guests planned in the future that are kind of way outside of our network, that are doing things at a little bit higher level that we're going to bring in. So I think as the summer progresses, we have several guests that you're going to see that we've already got lined up that are going to have some really good stories to tell and share their success stories about how they've been able to build these side hustles and businesses. So I'm excited. I'm ready to pump some even more money into this equipment. Murray needs to pump some money into his equipment. Hit the subscribe button. There's more good stuff
down
coming,
there,
Murray.
over there, up there, over there. I don't know. It seems like on these people always do this, but then it's like somewhere. I mean, maybe it's
on
over
YouTube,
there in the
it's
angles.
going to be somewhere up here, or maybe somewhere down here.
Sure.
I don't know.
Either
It'll be
way,
on there somewhere.
it's on your screen. Yeah, you're all smart. You'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, Murray. I think we accomplished our goal today. Anything else?
No, it's been good. Everyone, we should probably mention there's a lot of things going on in the world. And this is just maybe a place, not necessarily to get away from it. We're not addressing that. There's a lot of podcasts and movements out there that do address that. We do support everyone being kind and safe to each other. So please just be safe out there. Let's be, friendly environment, happy world. So even though we don't bring it up on here, we recognize that it's going on, and we're happy to talk about that outside of this. This is more focused on the side hustle. And maybe people are out there trying to figure out movements that will build a company to go help these things. I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't think about it. What can I do? It's the mindset I'm in. That's kind of the environment I am. Is there something out there that can, help I'm already in the world of trying to make the world better, or making the world. I'm already in the place
to
make
it together, Murray.
Yeah, make the world a better place. But so maybe you can get something out of this to go do that. So either way, we recognize it. Please be kind to one another.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, everybody, if you made it to the end of the episode, congratulations. You're part of the 4 people who've made it to the end of one of our episodes. Hit that subscribe button. You can go to Here's one more thing. If you are still watching this, we need comments. Tell us what you want to hear on here. Guess. Give us something. We post this stuff on Facebook. We have the YouTube channel. Leave comments and tell us, who do you want to hear? Give us some guest ideas. What topics do you want to see us cover? Or just say, Murray, spend some money and buy some damn equipment.
Yeah.
Something. Tell us something. You can find me at tacticalattorney.com. All the information about the podcast is on there, or the YouTube channel, or Facebook. Murray, where are you at?
Yep. You can find me at fullvolumesolutions.com, or again on here, reach out. But we're out there. We've got all the major platforms covered, both from our company and from the podcast.
Yeah. And TikTok. Don't forget to watch TikTok. Got the exciting TikTok videos coming.
Of course.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. It's been nice to get back on here with you, Murray. So have a good one, and I think we'll have a nice guest on the next episode. I think so. Everybody, take care. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good. See you.